This comedian roasted a bunch of bankers right to their face after being hired as entertainment.
Did he say you've raised $6,000 for charity? No. What do you? People have done more than $6,000 of coke during this party. 6,000? Look at yourselves. How much money do you guys have? People are making millions of dollars as I say this right now. This got weird immediately. This is a comedy show, so I'm gonna shit on you to your faces. Mostly because you look like you work at mid-level boutique banks. Not even, you look like you work at Moldus and Company. Oh, loosen up, guys. It's stand-up comedy at a charity event. We're gonna have to get on board. Thank you, one guy who runs the event. And everyone else is on a bunch of coke, so they're not really listening. They're like, business idea, business idea, business idea, business idea. Don't donate to the Bronx charity, business idea. I'm so sorry. What happens in the business is when you do this, you just don't get invited back. That's the only punishment you get. She's nodding. She's like, oh, I know. You won't be invited back. And I'm okay with that, to be honest.
I love this, and maybe you like it too. I really think that things are shifting culturally in the United States, because when I was growing up and I was in public school, it was shameful to be in a family that didn't have a lot of money, to not have nice clothes, not live in a nice house or have a nice car. And I did not have good teeth. I had brown spots on my front teeth. We could not afford good dental care. And so I kind of wore my class on my face. And I always felt that shame and felt like I needed to hide it. I didn't smile for years. But now, things are really different. I've noticed there's a resentment toward people who do have money. Now, it's shameful to come from a family where you can't afford that stuff, because it's like, you didn't have to work that hard. You had everything handed to you, and there's a resentment there. That's a huge cultural shift.
Rich kids be like, when I was 15, I started a restaurant, I started a production company, Be like, yeah, but how did you do that, right? Because I worked hard, and I work harder than everybody else, and nobody works as hard as me, and I'm smarter than everybody else, and everybody's so lazy, and everybody's just a lazy, fat piece of shit. Like, nah, bro, you're a rich kid. Now, that don't mean that you don't work hard. That don't mean that you don't have qualities that might count for something. That don't mean that nothing that you do matters. But if you can't see that the only reason that you were able to do all of these things is because you have loads of money that you didn't earn and you didn't work for. My dad doesn't give me any money. Yes, the he does, Robert. If he didn't, you wouldn't have trust funds. You wouldn't have the money. Where are you getting this money from? You can't stack up all this money working at a Subway or a Jimmy John's like everyone else. You ain't flipping that much drug money. And if you are flipping that much drug money, how did you get the money to buy the drugs? Oh, I know. Probably from your dad.
In the video I just stitched, they were talking about how, like, they don't sit around and wait for their parents to come bring them opportunities. But it's like, you can't even see that the only reason why you were able to, like, start a rescue, a production company, and be a screenwriter within, like, 3 years is because of access to money, your parents. Like, it's all one. The hard truth is, no kid work just always feels like cosplay.
Orange water, which I of course took before taking the elevator up to the office. I grabbed some breakfast.
There's a lot of things that I find really interesting about that video, really troubling. But one thing that sticks out to me is that, once again, it is expensive to be poor. I look at her healthy breakfast of orange water and fruit and chia seed pudding, and I know that she didn't buy any of those things. They're being handed out for free, and it's a perk of working for the company. But when you work a minimum wage job, or a job in which you are overworked and underpaid, something like teaching or healthcare or construction or hospitality, aside from maybe an employee appreciation breakfast, employers nickel and dime you for every water bottle, every snack. So these perks that these tech workers are getting literally lower their cost of living, not to mention other perks like transportation stipends. So qualifications and student loans aside, the cost of living is less.
As of today, I officially live in Florida. It feels so good to be out of hellhole California and in Freedom Land. This is a tweet from Christian Walker, a right-wing influencer who you may have seen from some of his viral videos where he quite literally screams from the rooftops about all things liberal he detests. Feminism, anti-racism, equality, awful things like that.
It's always the loudest mouths are always people who aren't affected with this Texas heartbeat bill. It's people who need a gym membership raising their voices about abortion rights. Sweetie, you don't need an abortion anytime soon because you need to have sex first. And I'm not sure anybody's down for that right now with you.
So who cares about this kid, and why should we give a crap about him moving to Florida? The land of Trump and Ron DeSantis can have him, right? Well, Christian Walker also happens to be the son of Herschel Walker, the ex-football player running perhaps the saddest campaign for Senate I've ever seen. So while he may seem like just a kid with a TikTok account, he's also extremely close to the actual Republican levers of power, and he is not alone. You've maybe gotten glimpses of Florida's increasingly right-wing turn over the years, but it's actually quite astonishing how it is quickly becoming the center of all things right, not just policy-wise, but culturally as well. And in our day and age where social media is king, certain right-wing influencers are not only gaining insane levels of fame, but their influence politically is spreading in a way that I think deserves talking about. So the Tampa Bay Times reports that the area is rapidly becoming a community of MAGA brand influencers who have forged an ecosystem of provocative, conservative content. The author writes, quote, with former President Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago and Republican Ron DeSantis residing in the governor's mansion, influencers are increasingly finding access to the corridors of power. An example of how this media/content culture is spreading politically can be seen in the following. So there's this pretty heinous influencer, David Leatherwood, and he recently posted a photo of drag queens reading books to children with the caption, quote, here are 4 reasons gay conservatives support the anti-grooming bill, aka DeSantis's Florida Parental Rights in Education, better known on the left as the Don't Say Gay bill. So you can see the direct line between this growing community of MAGA culture warriors and policies that have real-world material impacts on citizens. Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro both have recently bought property in Florida, and Ron DeSantis, who according to the piece actually typically declines interviews with traditional Florida media like certain newspapers and local television channels, he's been on Shapiro's podcast as well as filmed interviews in Tucker's Florida studio. So something's clearly brewing in Florida that we shouldn't just toss off as a liberal exodus from California, because these influencers have the capital and support to create an ecosystem that could even rival Hollywood. Perhaps we've taken the entertainment industry's historic liberalism for granted for too long. The Trumpification of politics is just getting started, and we're already seeing his celebrity politico impact on the next generation, and it's pretty bleak. Just look at the user bio behind a wildly popular account called The Typical Liberal. It says, running for Congress, eventually.